How would Israel's physical health be affected if they disobeyed God? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Deuteronomy on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Deuteronomy 28. We're going to be reading from verses 25 to 35. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Deuteronomy 28, beginning at verse 25. The Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. And you shall become troublesome to all the kingdoms of the earth. Your carcasses shall be food for all the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and no one shall frighten them away. The Lord will strike you with the boils of Egypt, with tumors, with the scab and with the itch, from which you cannot be healed. The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of heart. And you shall grope at noonday, as a blind man gropes in darkness. You shall not prosper in your ways. You shall only be oppressed and plundered continually, and no one shall save you. You shall betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. You shall build a house, but you shall not dwell in it. You will plant a vineyard, and shall not gather its grapes. Your ox shall be slaughtered before your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. Your donkey shall be violently taken away from before you, and shall not be restored to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and you shall have no one to rescue them. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, and your eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all day long, and there shall be no strength in your hand. A nation whom you have not known shall eat the fruit of your land, and the produce of your labor, and you shall be only oppressed and crushed continually. So shall you be driven mad because of the sight which your eyes see. The Lord will strike you in the knees and on the legs with severe boils, which cannot be healed, and from the sole of your foot to the top of your head. In this section of Deuteronomy, we have been dealing with the curses that would come upon Israel for their disobedience. In our last lesson, we saw a summary of the curses that would befall them, which would be the complete opposite of the blessings they would receive if they obeyed. Then beginning in verse 20 through the end of this chapter, we see Moses expanding on these curses, dealing with them in 5 main sections. Section 1's curses included famine, pestilence, resulting in bodily weakness and disease from a lack of food. Coming down to verse 25, we find that God would also strike Israel with fear that would cause them to flee from their enemies. Remember, if they obeyed God, their enemies would fear them, for the Lord was on their side. However, as a punishment for disobedience, the Lord would place fear in Israel, so their enemies would defeat them. We'll see more about that as we move through the rest of the chapter. So that concludes section 1's set of curses. So now we'll move on to section 2's set of curses, where we find that the Lord would afflict Israel with various loathsome diseases and give them over to be plundered and oppressed by their enemies. Death would be common among Israel, resulting in numerous dead bodies for the birds of the air to feast upon. Moreover, God would remove the fear of man from many of the beasts of the field that he placed in them in Genesis 9 verse 2, meaning that these beasts would rise up and have no fear of killing man. And if the diseases that God said he would send to Israel early on in the chapter weren't enough, God would send upon them boils that he struck the Egyptians with. He would also send them tumors, which could mean hemorrhoids or some other swelling of the body caused by an abnormal growth of tissue in the body. These types of diseases, God said, would be a pain for them that would not be able to be healed. But it wouldn't simply be Israel's physical health that would be affected. Their mental health would be affected as well. He would strike them with madness and confusion of heart, meaning that they would no longer even be able to function in daily life properly. All of these diseases would make it easy for their enemies to plunder them, and plunder them they would. A man might be betrothed to a wife, but the enemy would come along, take her away, and sleep with her himself. A person might build a house, but because God would give the land over to the enemy, he would not be the one to dwell in it. The same went with the vineyards too, for the enemy would be the one who ate of the labors which Israel had toiled. Their animals would be stolen, slaughtered, and not be replaced, thus making the people poor. Their sons and daughters would be given away to other nations, never to be seen again by their families. All of these calamities would be so terrible that it would cause those who weren't already mad to go mad themselves. Such was not a state to live in. But again, there's still more to come, as we will discuss, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 36 to 46, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.